Hello class, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at the idea of ellipses. So in our last class we've been dealing with boxes. Boxes were important for us. Hopefully all of you enjoyed working with them. They're incredibly important to be able to make up from various angles. Now today we're going to get involved with curves, and the reason why planes are important because now we're going to be putting ellipses in planes. So you got to understand the one before you can get to the other. So today with ellipses, all of you should have a handout, and the front of it should say on it assignment 6 and September 24th. And so what you want to do is pull that out, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this first page. So the way that this video is going to work is I'm going to be showing you a few things, like right now talking about the first page. I'm going to show you some things on the paper behind me, and then I'm going to say, draw 8 of these or 10 of these, and then you want to stop this tape and you want to do those, and then I'm going to show you another page and talk about another idea with ellipses, and then I'm going to say draw so many of those, turn off the tape, draw so many of those, turn it back on again, and we're going to be kind of going through it that way. Which I think will work the best for you. So anyways, this one with our assignment number 6. It's talking about ellipses. Now, all of you should be looking at it at this moment, and is what you're going to see here at the bottom part is going to be a circle. Now, an ellipse is different than a circle. A circle, the height and the width are equal. On an ellipse, they are not equal. So you get a little bit of a difference there. So whenever you're dealing with a circle, you're not dealing with an ellipse. So they're showing a plane. We all know what a plane is now. Here's a plane. In it, they got a vertical horizontal line of equal height and width. Therefore, you get a circle. Now, they're showing us the breakup that we're going to be doing on planes for ellipses. So I need you to take note of this. So they're going to go from corner to corner and then midway. And that's what you would do on a flat plane, which parallel. But we're going to project them in space. So the planes are going to converge, and we're going to be putting the same configuration on the plane, and that's what they're showing you here on the far right. So on the far right, as you're looking at it, now you see what we did before. You see your horizon line, you see the vanishing point, and now you begin to see the plane, and within the plane you got an ellipse, because the ellipse has 2 lines running through it, a vertical and horizontal. One's longer than the other, one's shorter. One's known as a minor axis line, and it's the shorter one, in this case vertical. And there's a major axis line going this way. So at this point, I'm going to start to show you some things up here. So here's what you're going to get. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at if I put in a minor axis line, in this case, like what I just showed you, and then put in a major axis line, the 2 things that are involved with this with your first practice to try to understand these when I tell you to stop this tape and start drawing is the distance on this side wants to be equal to the distance on this side. And so mine's off a little, and so I'm going to do that. And then this height wants to be equal to this height until now it's set up. Okay, so in other words, you got a vertical, horizontal, this becomes a major axis line, this becomes our minus axis line. The other thing that's important with ellipses, that these 2 lines, the major and the axis, are always at a 90-degree angle to each other. So if I put in here a little angle, you should be able to see it. That's our 90-degree angle. And so now we've got a 90-degree, I'm just going to put it in there so all of you can see it. So these 2 lines, at whatever angle we're going to place them, if I place, now I'm going to make an ellipse on here. So what happens is this edge and this edge, and if you want, feel free to do this as a guideline to get started. I think you'll find it helpful. I find if I put a little bit of a vertical and a little bit of a horizontal, not much, doesn't want to be too wide, it's going to keep your ellipses from doing this, being wide and going on an angle crooked, and it's going to keep it away from being a lemon shape like this. Or 2, don't make them where you got a point and a point. Ellipses never go to a point. And because we're right-handed, this happens all the time. We might start at a point like there and go around like that. I do those. So is what we have to do is when you have a little line there like that, is what it's going to do. It's going to keep you from going to a point. So then in this midst, you're going to place an ellipse. Okay. Now, you want to touch those tangent points as they're going to be referred to as. So this becomes a point of tangent. And if they're right, these shapes should be equal. So this on my left, I'm just changing it a little bit, making it a little bit wider, okay? But in the end, you want to feel free to make these things pretty loose. So your ellipses will be like that. We've got a major axis line, we've got a minor axis line. There are no points on these. And so what you're going to be doing is making them in various ways. Now, I can tilt this. I can tilt an angle like this. And then if this is an oblique plane, then my minor axis line, if I'm going to use the minor axis line, it has to be at a 90-degree angle to this line. So as long as you've got that 90-degree angle there, you're going to be able to come up with the ellipse. The other thing, as we just talked about, and this is, again, what you're going to be practicing with in a minute, you want to get this equal to this. Okay, so those all want to be equal, and then you're going to come, if you want to make, little edge lines like we just talked about, and then begin to think of, this is a curve, it cannot end at a point, and you want to try to get in there and do a loose feel to it. So most of us, this is a little harder vertical than it should be for you guys on the horizontal on the piece of paper. So that's the idea. You want a nice free feeling. And so is what you guys are going to do now. You're going to put a bunch of these on your piece of paper. So we can put them at various widths. Maybe I can, let me change my direction. Let me put my major axis line as a vertical and my minor axis line as a horizontal. And we'll do it that way. And so you're going to be doing these thick and wide. You can make some wider, narrower. And I want you to do about 10 of them or 12 of them and try to get a pretty good feel for connecting these points together, right? So some of us might take one side and then go to the other. But after a while, you'll start to kind of get a feel for it. So work with these, and right now we're going to do it within this structure. And then when you get back, I'm going to talk about just doing a few of these freehand without that structure. So anyways, turn off the tape and do about 10 to 15 of these. Anyways, welcome back. You now should have a little bit of an experience doing our major and minor axis lines at various angles. Now is what I'm going to have you do for the fun of it. Once you have that, is just freehand them and try to get a feel for getting the edges, and say if it's narrow like that, or if I begin to make one narrower, see if you can take them and do them at an angle and just kind of try to get the feel of your arm, trying to keep the widths the same at whatever angle that you're going to try to do them. See if you can make them wider. Keep in mind, but now in an imaginary way, keep in mind those axis lines I've talked about. So when I'm doing this one, I was thinking that my axis line was there, and I was thinking that my minor axis line was there. And in the end, with these freehand ones, feel free afterwards to go in there and make your major and minor axis line and see how close the relationships are. See if you got them looking pretty good. They do take a little while. Ellipses are hard. So if I've got this right, the widest point should be at a 90-degree angle, like that is. Make sure your 90-degree angles work and see how close you have them. If I have it close, this should be pretty equal to that, and it is. And this should be pretty equal to this, and that's pretty close. So those aren't too bad. And so play with them. I even want you to say, if you put one in here like this, and usually when you do it the way you guys are going to do it, lying down with your arm like this, most of us go around and around and do not touch the pencil to the paper until we have a feel for the ellipse imaginary. And then we just touch our pencil to the paper, and then, once you got your arm going around and you get the sense, use your shoulders so that they're not at an angle. Try to get a nice horizontal feel or vertical feel. Keep it going around and around. Once you got the right feel, just lower your pencil and make the mark while your hand's still in motion. Because we've got to get them away from this sort of stiff figure, hitting those points in a very conscious way. Now we've got to start making them a little looser. Again, experiment with them, play with them. They can run through each other. You can begin to think of them going this way, going up, getting narrower, 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 wider, wider, wider. You can make loops with them, trying to get a sense of a progression as much as you possibly can. So I'm going to have you turn this tape off again, and I want you to do at least 20 free-handed ellipses. Again, keeping in mind the major and minor axis line without drawing it in there till after. Okay. Anyways, welcome back. Now what you want to do is look at this page. It should be the second page in your handout that I gave you. And now we're going to start to think of a little more perspective with these ellipses. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these ellipses and we're going to put them in a plane. This is where the boxes come in handy. So the type of an ellipse that I showed you had no perspective to it. The front and the back are equal. So in other words, with all of those planes, ellipses we put on, and like planes, these are equal to each other. Ellipses in perspective, they're not equal to each other. So what happens is the front, you're going to notice the back up here is going to be a little narrower, and the front's going to become a little wider. And so this is the way that we're going to be doing them in planes. So they're going to show you a few things on this page. They're going to show you one in light of a circle and an ellipse, and of course these are now put into a box. I'm not going to do that. Sometimes in the class I do set them up in terms of a box and do an ellipse in each one of them. You can on your own experiment with that. It's incredibly important to do. I'm going to do them in individual planes, and you'll be doing them now along with me as I go through them and do them. Okay, so you'll be drawing as I draw along with this series. Keep this handout with you because it's going to be important for you to refer to, because on here it's going to talk about what we just talked about, our major axis line, our minor axis line, and then there's what's called a perspective center. The perspective center is here. In a plane, there's a center, which is known as a perspective center, and that's where the X is going to cross. And then our major axis line, as you can see, is not in the center of the perspective of that plane or the perspective center, but it is in the two